In 1993, Toyota built a sports car so over-engineered and overpriced it nearly died on the showroom floor. The MK4 Supra, a flagship nobody asked for at $44,000. But that same excess produced a machine whose stock engine block could survive 1,000 horsepower. Today, clean examples sell for over $200,000. The story of how that happened begins with a decision Toyota almost immediately regretted. Toyota's big gamble took center stage at the 1993 Chicago Auto Show, where the new Supra was unveiled as the company's flagship sports car. Production began that April at the Tahara plant in Aichi, Japan, with a clear message: this was not a car for the masses. The Supra arrived in United States showrooms with a price tag that started around $34,000 for the naturally aspirated model and climbed to nearly $44,000 for the turbo. That sticker put it above the Nissan 300ZX and Mazda RX-7, and within striking distance of the Chevrolet Corvette and Porsche 968. Toyota aimed for prestige, but the cost narrowed the audience to a handful of die-hard enthusiasts and well-heeled buyers. Early sales were solid on paper, enough to keep the line running, but inside Toyota, disappointment set in as the numbers fell short of expectations. Chief engineer Isao Suzuki would later admit the company tried to pull the plug, realizing too late that the Supra's price had boxed it into a corner. The car had been built as a halo, but the market wasn't ready to pay for perfection. Toyota's approach to the Supra MK4 chassis was anything but cautious. The engineers specified double wishbone suspension at both the front and rear, a layout more common to exotic cars than to mass-market coupes. Beneath the sheet metal, reinforced subframes and thick cross-bracing tied the body together, pushing torsional rigidity far beyond what the 320 horsepower factory output demanded. Internal development notes set the stiffness target nearly 30% higher than the previous generation, a figure that outpaced even some European rivals. Every mounting bolt in the suspension was torqued to strict standards, eliminating flex and keeping the car planted at high speeds or under heavy cornering loads. Anchoring the drivetrain, the GetRag V160 6-speed manual was rated for torque numbers that dwarfed the stock engine, and bench tests showed it could handle inputs well above 500 Nm without complaint. These choices were not made for the sake of marketing or appearance. They reflected a mindset that saw durability and headroom as non-negotiable, even if it meant building a car that was heavier, more expensive, and ultimately overqualified for its original market. That excess strength would become the foundation for everything that followed, allowing the Supra to withstand tuning experiments and abuse that would have sidelined lesser machines. The 2JZ GTE engine was never meant to be a legend. On paper, it was a 3.0-liter inline-six with sequential twin turbos, officially rated at 276 horsepower in Japan and up to 320 in the United States. But under the surface, Toyota's engineers had quietly built something far stronger than the spec sheets suggested. Forged internals, a cast iron block, and a conservative tune gave the engine a hidden reserve that would soon attract attention from a new breed of enthusiasts. Early tuners in the late 1990s and early 2000s discovered that the stock block could handle 800, even 1,200 horsepower with little more than upgraded fuel and bigger turbos. Dyno charts and drag strip time slips started circulating online, turning the 2JZ GTE into a benchmark for reliability and limitless tuning headroom. Isao Suzuki, the car's chief engineer, once described the Supra as a race car you could drive with confidence on American streets. That promise, built into every 2JZ, traveled far beyond Toyota's original intent. By the early 2000s, the engine had become a global symbol, celebrated not just for its numbers, but for its ability to survive and thrive wherever power was pushed to the edge. Toyota offered the MK4 Supra in two distinct body styles: the fixed-roof hardtop and the Targa sport roof. The hardtop, with its uninterrupted roofline, came in about 30 pounds lighter and noticeably more rigid than the Targa. That extra stiffness wasn't just a number on a spec sheet, it changed how the car responded to every corner and bump, making the hardtop the purist's choice for drivers who valued precision over open-air cruising. Over time, this structural difference became a sorting mechanism in the collector market. Clean, original hardtops, especially in turbo 6-speed form, started to pull away in value, often commanding 10 to 15% more than their Targa counterparts. The market wasn't just chasing nostalgia, It was rewarding the rare combination of engineering purity and unmodified condition. Rarity and chassis feel, not just horsepower, began separating the truly sought-after Supras from the rest. In the summer of 2001, an orange Supra streaked across theater screens and changed the car's fate overnight. Before the film, the MK4 was a cult favorite among import fans, but that single movie catapulted it into the heart of mainstream car culture. Suddenly, everyone recognized the shape, the color, and the sound. Classified ads for Supras jumped by more than a third in the months that followed. Asking prices shot up too. What had been a $20,000 car was now fetching $28,000, sometimes more, as demand outpaced supply. Insurance companies took notice and hiked premiums, treating the Supra as a high-risk, high-value asset. The car's image was now inseparable from speed, style, and cinematic bravado. Yet the myth that took hold wasn't built on Hollywood alone. The Supra's real-world strength, the overbuilt engine, the bulletproof gearbox, the chassis that could take endless abuse, gave the legend substance. Pop culture didn't invent the car's appeal, but it broadcast that appeal to millions, turning engineering excess into an object of desire. The Supra was now more than a machine, it was an icon, and the market responded in kind. Online forums became the proving ground for the Supra's reputation. By the early 2000s, supraforums.com and mkiv.com pulsed with data, quarter-mile times, dyno sheets, and drag strip slips posted for all to see. Claims of 800 or even 1,200 horsepower on stock internals were no longer rumors. They were backed by threads filled with photos, video links, and time slips showing passes under 9 seconds. The Supra's 2JZ GTE engine, once a quiet marvel of Toyota engineering, now had a public record of surviving boost levels and launches that would have destroyed most factory engines. Every new dyno chart or drag result pushed the benchmark higher, turning the Supra into the standard by which other builds were measured. Magazine features in Turbo and Sport Compact Car chronicled these achievements, amplifying the car's legend beyond the web. Meanwhile, the aftermarket responded with a flood of bolt-on turbo kits, fuel systems, and standalone ECU systems, all designed to exploit the platform's hidden strength. Shops like Titan Motorsports and Sound Performance built their reputations on Supra projects, and the community itself became a shared laboratory, testing the limits of what Toyota's overbuilt hardware could take. The Supra was no longer just a fast car, it was the car everyone wanted to beat. By 2010, a clean MK4 Supra could still be found for around $20,000, a figure that made it tempting for project builders and weekend racers. But the days of affordable icons were numbered. By 2014, prices had climbed to the $30,000 to $35,000 range, as online awareness and nostalgia began to tighten the market. The real turning point arrived in 2018, when median values shot past $60,000. Suddenly, the Supra was no longer just a tuner's canvas. It was becoming a blue-chip asset. Auction houses started to take notice. By 2022, pristine examples were hammering at $176,000 at major sales. The price ceiling kept rising, with clean, unmodified 6-speed turbo cars clearing $200,000 by 2025 and 2026. Each step up the ladder was driven by a shrinking pool of original cars. Years of modifications, hard driving, and export demand had whittled down the survivors. What began as an overbuilt sports car, overlooked for its high cost in the 1990s, had become an investment-grade rarity. The irony was complete. The very excess that once limited its audience now set the Supra apart, turning it into a trophy asset for collectors and a legend for anyone who ever dreamed of owning one. The arrival of the MK5 signaled a new chapter, shaped by Toyota's partnership with BMW. Underneath its badge, the car shared much of its core engineering and electronics with the BMW Z4, an approach that stood in sharp contrast to the in-house, no-compromise philosophy of the MK4. For some, this collaboration represented a practical answer to changing markets and stricter regulations, allowing the Supra name to survive in a different era. For others, it raised questions about authenticity and whether a shared platform could carry the weight of decades of myth. The Supra badge now carries a legend built on over-engineering, cultural impact, and rarity. Expectations that every successor must face. Whether the MK5 upholds that legacy or simply borrows its silhouette remains a question with no easy answer. The irony endures. What once doomed the MK4 now makes it untouchable. As collectors chase six-figure Supras and the 2J's GTE inspires new generations, the line between mistake and masterpiece blurs. In the end, engineering excess became legend. The market still writes the final chapter.